Hey, you like cars? This is not the normal view for the podcast. I want you to be very clear about what I'm doing. This is called me being committed to this 2023 CarQuicks podcast. Now, I know you're looking at me and you're like, bro, where are you at? Now, if anybody listens to the audio, doesn't make any difference because you probably can hear a few things in the background like some random animals chirping. I'm not at home again. If you look behind me, that's Monterrey, Mexico. I'm in the Chapinque National Park. I'm up in the mountains in Monterrey, Mexico. Now, I know you're probably thinking, bro, you could have took a day off. No, okay? Commitment is the first thing, and persistence and consistency. So anyways, episode 38, in the mountains of Monterrey, Mexico, we're shooting this podcast. I'm keeping it very short. I'm leaning against basically it looks like I'm leaning against some barbed wire because I'm off in the park doing something that everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy. Matter of fact, I'm speaking English and most of them probably don't. So there that goes. Anyways, we're here to do something and we're here to do it quick. The CarQuicks podcast, live from the Monterrey, Mexico, Chapinque. I'm saying this wrong. My wife is going to kill me because she's the one that speaks Spanish and we're here to see the family. That's why we're here. Now, what do I have to talk about and why am I doing it here? Well, because I have nowhere else to do it, okay? And I figured I'd make a backdrop of the city behind me and make it look cool. You know, you got a couple cars going to float in the area, but we're keeping it short, I promise you. Now, there isn't much to talk about of the news, but then at the end of this, I'll talk about my little road trip down here. But the most important news that you already have seen and heard is that the Cyberturck is out. And obviously, this has been building up for years, but now we have the official certified information from Elon himself with the prices. And listen, the $39,000 Cyberturck that we all hoped and dreamed for, listen, inflation, economies of scale, and other things have decided to rear their ugly faces once again. And the base price is $69,000. That is a substantial change in what we were trying to do before. But regardless, it's out. So we can at least say that we have made it to the end of this being created. Now, how soon will you get yours if you pre-ordered it? I don't know, but how the pricing goes is rear-wheel drive, standard model 79,000 moves you into a dual motor, all-wheel drive one. And then there's the Cyber Beast, which is 99,000, which has 845 horsepower, 0 to 60 under 3 seconds. Top speed is like 130, range 340 miles, towing capacity 11,000 pounds, payload 2,500. Now those numbers also are not what they would have been from the original launch that we saw when they revealed the truck, because usually those were supposed to be 14,000 and 3,500. But I digress. I mean, if you're really hauling enough that you needed that 14,000, go cop a diesel. Okay, Cybertruck wasn't for you regardless. Now the looks, we already know how it looks, but I got to see a few videos, especially from Marcus Brownlee. I love his channel. And he got to do a more in-depth look of the truck. And I got a stronger opinion on what I feel about it. And the outside of it's the same funky, just in your face. It looks so abstract to the normal cars that it has a very cool, it's like ugly cool. It's like, that's not really beautiful, but it's so abstract. I have to look at it and kind of appreciate what they've done here. So I appreciate what they've done with the Cybertruck because you know what? In order to get into the truck market and get people to have to make some noise, good, bad, or otherwise, you got to do something that's going to shake the industry. A Cybertruck's going to do that. The interior, though, is where I was watching Marquez's video, and it felt like it was missing or a missed opportunity for something more special. See, the outside of it is so outrageous that the interior, to follow that same design language of just sharp angles, squares and, triangles, so to speak, it just didn't look that great to me when he was in the car reviewing it. It looked more Spartan than any other electric car, and Tesla is known for being minimalist. Now, I say all this to say maybe if I was in person, it may have a little bit of a more special vibe to it. I do think that they should have changed the front seat design that they've been using in every single Tesla. I think maybe the Model S or the Plaid might have changed it a little bit, but the Cybertruck should have gotten a special design for the seat. Now, granted, I'm sure they did this because when you're scaling up, when you're trying to build a car company, you use parts from different cars. You get the parts bin and you get cracking with how many things you need on it and what you need there. So I can imagine that Elon was like, you know what? I'm not doing no extra special seat. I barely am making it to the Cybertruck to launch. So listen, get in how you fit in. So the Cybertruck, he drove it. He was talking about the fit and finish, and that's always going to be a point of contention with Tesla because they aren't as rock solid as some of the bigger OEM manufacturers, but they're getting there. The stamping of the stainless steel is really going to be the turning point, not the turning point, it's going to be the conversation piece for every Cybertruck that comes out, because the nature of stamping steel means that every single piece you stamp is not the same. Every single piece is not actually equal. Some of it will be a little different. Some of it will be a little off by, a millimeter here, millimeter two there. It's not going to be that Bugatti level of micron panel gaps. They're just going to have to stamp this. And as time goes on, they're probably going to figure out more efficient ways of doing this. But if you're running on this first batch of Cybertrucks, you definitely are getting the beta testers. You're getting the first ones out the oven. The recipe going to be tweaked a little bit, and towards the end, maybe a couple years out, it's going to be perfected, and we're going to have a better Cybertruck experience for anybody that's buying one. I'm not on that buying list. I mean, they look cool enough, but to be perfectly honest, I don't really care to have a truck anyway. So if I'm going to buy a truck, it's probably because I need it for some specific reason. I don't know if a Cybertruck fits my lifestyle. But it looks cool enough. Listen, if I had unlimited funds, like I always said, I'd get everything, have a good old, plethora of different vehicles, a smorgasbord of it, okay? Now, outside of the Cybertruck, there is one other truck that truly is probably the more important piece of trucking information as far as the industry goes, and that is the Tacoma. Now, the Toyota Tacoma is going to sell probably 7 times, 10 times more than whatever Cybertruck's going to sell. That's just a guarantee. More people want a Tacoma. It is what it is. I'm just checking that I'm not standing inside of like a fire ant pile because I'm in the middle of the wilderness. Okay. So if you're looking on the video and you see me look down, because I'm double checking my stance. Now back to the Tacoma. Now, I already talked about the Tacoma like a few episodes ago when they were releasing the first thing and they talked about everything with it. I went down a whole shebang. I'm going to throw up the link in the, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see me post up the video of where I talked about the Tacoma in totality. But here's what we're talking about first. It's coming in at $33,000, a little bit more, a little bit less. I can't remember the exact number for the SR model, and makes its way all the way up to $53,000 if you're talking about the limited. Now, the drivetrain is the most important part of this whole thing. The Tacoma is completely redesigned, as I told you, but the drivetrain is what I want to focus on because they've done something that I did not think they were going to do. So you can get a turbocharged 4-cylinder in every one of these right now. I can hear y'all now. I can hear the V6 owners. I can hear the naysayers. I can hear them loud and clear. They're not feeling this, okay? If you have a Tacoma, the V6, that motor is rock solid, granite, vibranium. It will survive the apocalypse, and it'll survive the next zombie one. It'll keep going, okay? So that one will survive. So if you are a V6 owner, I know you're probably thinking, I don't even want to hear about no 4-cylinder from Toyota. I want the listen, turbocharged technology and hybrid technology has moved up so far that if your worry is of torque to accelerate into traffic, to get over rocks, or if you're doing off-roading, we got the torque. So what do we got? So it starts at 228, might be 38 horsepower for the base SR model, and it moves its way all the way to the top up to 278 horsepower and 317 foot-pounds of torque for our IMAX hybrid system. But the real party trick here, the one that got my attention, there is a 270 horsepower, 300 plus foot-pounds of torque version that comes with the 6-speed manual. The 6-speed Manny. Now, if you hear kids in the background, those are my children. Wildin', okay? But hey, like I said, the party never stops. Now, no way did I think that there'd be a 6-speed manual Tacoma coming out. Matter of fact, I was almost willing to bet that they were not going to do this, but they did. So Toyota releases the new 2024 Tacoma, and you can get it with a 6-speed manual, and it's not handicapped by some pedestrian 4-cylinder bare bones fleet services addition to the Tacoma. You can get this in a fully optioned, fully manufactured, fully built out Tacoma that has everything you wanted with the 6-speed Manny as our Lord and Savior intended. I want y'all to just buy it, first of all, because if nobody's buying the 6-speed manual Tacoma, you can best believe somewhere along the generation of this Tacoma, they're going to axe it. And if you think they're making a brand new Tacoma anytime before I'm 95 years old, you got another thing coming, because they're going to milk this thing until there's no more. Okay, the next Tacoma that comes out is probably flying. I don't even know if it is, but you know what? That's how far in the future we're going to go with the generation. If you see how far they went with the current generation and how it hasn't really changed in eons, add some more eons to the new one. Now, if you're thinking about getting a Toyota Tacoma, I would advise you to call your local Toyota dealership and start the foolish shenanigans that are going to be played with the markups that are going to be on this truck. And if you're in Texas like me, if you're in Texas or where I used to live in Hawaii, the taco out there, oh man, yo, you already know. If you're in any of these states and you want a Tacoma, be ready for the foolery, because it's going to be at a top level. Now, outside of the Tacoma, outside of the Cybertruck, there is another thing that happened. Now, this kind of gets into a conversation about like collecting, right? So there was a specific car collection that was based in the Houston, Texas area called the White Collection. And it was all Porsches, all white Porsches. I mean, that's not really that interesting as far as a color choice, other than seeing so many of the same car in white could be cool to people that like a single palette. But somebody collected all these Porsches over a course of years, almost every single one, all the high-end ones, 918 Spider with the Wyzak package, 94 RS models, all the cars that you would want, right? 964s, 911s, turbos, GT3s, all the Porsches that everybody thinks of. But the key thing here is the person that collected these never drove them. All they did was start them up every month and probably maintain what they could. Now, obviously, if you're not driving a car and it's sitting for 10 years, rubber and things like that, though you might start it every day, you start rolling down the street after 10 years of sitting still, things are going to start cracking and snapping. Rice Krispies, okay? Snap, crackle, and pop when you're driving at speed, when you find out that, hey, them rubber bushings, they deteriorated. Now, the question that came up is a few podcasts I listened to, they brought up something that said, if you're doing a collection that big, it's bad for like business, or you're going to lose money, or that you might be mentally unstable. The fact that you wanted to get all these collections together and not drive them. And I can understand that from a car person, especially if you're a Porsche. Jerry Seinfeld had a pretty famous line where he says, if you make it to heaven with the lowest mileage Porsche, you lose. And he's obviously one of the biggest, most well-known Porsche aficionados and collectors. So what he was saying is drive your car. Same way I drive my GR Corolla, and I tell people, if you're sitting at home telling people, oh, I got 5,000 miles on my GR Corolla, you really lost the plot on what we're doing here. See, I got almost 20,000 of mine. Anybody having a low mileage GR Corolla, I'm like, you're not getting any accolades for a low mileage Corolla. Nowhere. Nobody's going to care. They're going to say, why did you do that? Now, anyways, the point I was bringing up is I found it interesting that there was a discussion happening that somebody could have an issue because they're collecting cars and they're not driving them. When what I saw was somebody who had the means to collect cars the way somebody like myself might collect Hot Wheels, or a gentleman I know named Anthony Doe has an outrageous Hot Wheels collection, a super fire one, color coordinated. And if he could have done it on another level somewhere else, somebody collects baseball cards, Gundam figurines, movies, comic books, magazines, books. It's the same thing. Everybody has something that they collect. Coins, $2 bills, Susan D. Anthony dollars. Whatever it may be, somebody's collecting something. This gentleman just had the means to collect cars in a way that somebody collects baseball cards. And I don't think it's anything wrong with that. Just the difference is his bank account's bigger than mine. And some people, that's what moves them. One color, one company, one model, Porsches, all white. You can clearly see that this is how this person operates. They like doing this. And you've seen it, if you follow car collections, you've seen it with a lot of huge collections they find in the Middle East, like the Sultan of Brunei, who had all yellow cars, or, well, he's a special case. They had cars that were so exclusive that even now, the companies that run the cars that they had can't even account for when that happened and how it happened. But that's a whole nother podcast episode, maybe one day. But the point is, everybody collects something, right? It's just that that person had the means to collect the cars. I don't think it's any different than somebody collecting comic books. The only thing is that the price tag is much higher. Now, it is unfortunate that somebody wouldn't want to drive the cars, but then again, like I said before, somebody might collect a comic book and never open it up. They might collect action figures and never take them out the box to play with the action or the figure. So it's all the same. It's just a scale of difference, right? I'm here with my Hot Wheels. He's over here with his real Hot Wheels, okay? That's the difference. Now, I don't think it's anything worse. It sold for $30 million, the whole collection, I believe, in totality, which I don't know if that's a good deal, a bad deal, if he lost money. The 918 Spider was sold for almost $4 million, which is the biggest price tag. And the rest of them were normal Porsches, so I don't think they would garner millions of dollars. It wasn't like he had a collection of all white McLaren F1s. Then he would have made clear to $1 billion maybe. You know, who knows? He would have cleared 100. If he would have had as many as them Porsches he had as McLaren F1s, it would have been north of 250 million. So the collection sold. It was cool. I mean, I saw pictures of it. I mean, it's cool to see it. I wish I could have seen it in person, but obviously whoever owns it is extremely private in order to have that collection in the same city I'm at and privately in a warehouse somewhere. So the white collection sold. I'm sure out there's a black collection, the silver, green, yellow, orange, blue, the rainbow. And, you know, that's it for the main news that I wanted to talk about on this podcast episode. And I'm keeping it very short, very organic, not many notes in my hand. I'm just all off the top of my head of what I wrote down because I don't have my computer in front of me because clearly I'm in the middle of the woods. Like I said before, you can hear it in the background. But I drove down here and they're like, yo, you took a road trip to Monterrey. Yes, 7 hours away, 8, I don't know how many it was, but we jumped in the vehicle, jumped in the best road trip car ever. And I'm going to be doing a review on this vehicle at my YouTube channel probably next week or so sometime. I don't know. Don't hold me to it. I'm not 100% sure when this is going to happen, but it's going to happen. We drove down to the 2022 Sienna XSE, the Toyota Sienna. That's our other car. Now, obviously, I'm a Toyota family, not by choice. It just kind of happened. The chips fell that way. I bought the Toyota Sienna for my wife a long time ago. And then the GR Corolla got announced, and I said, hey, wrap this up. Toyota family, we are. Okay? Drove that down here. And for anybody that has been doubting whether they should get a minivan, because honestly, when I do my review, the minivan is the greatest car that you can have for your family, bar none. I don't want to hear about I'm a wagon person. I don't want to hear about no wagons. I love wagons. I used to have a Jetta sport wagon before the Sienna. Actually, after the sport wagon, we had a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And then after that, we had an old Sienna that I resurrected from my mother-in-law's driveway. And then we got the new Sienna. Let me tell you this. If you have a family of more than 2 children, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, well, 7's wild. But if you have children and you've been picking them up inside of your SUV, trying to strap them into a seat, trying to figgle and finagle your way to the back of the third row, that really is only a suggestion unless you got the big behemoth like a Suburban, or maybe you got the Hyundai Palisades or the, Toyota Highlander, Grand Highlander that now has a bigger bit of a third row seat, still can't match the minivan. And I know you're telling to yourself, I don't want to drive in no mom-mobile. Yes, you do. Because you know good and well that I have something that you wish you had, and that's sliding doors. And that's the main selling point I tell to everybody. Any of my friends, family, that they come to see our van, they're like, I've been really thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I seen you hauling all them kids in that Sequoia. We used to have a Sequoia too, right? Actually, my scale is off. After we had the Sienna, I bought a Toyota Sequoia. Unfortunately, it got totaled. When I had the Sequoia, I realized I had already made a mistake because I was picking kids up into this big lifted truck. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. I'm up in the air. I got a V8. That's awesome. Guess what I don't like? Every time I got to leave, I got to haul these kids inside this car, in this truck. So when I got the van and I got the automatic sliding doors, I can walk up to my van, swing my foot under the side skirt, and guess what happens? Doors open automatically. I'm in a luxury car if you want to really get down to it. If you want to get down to the brass tacks, the kibbles and bits, the meat and potatoes, I borderline got a luxury car. You know, how many cars got automatic opening, closing doors that are SUVs? Not a lot. Usually it's luxury SUVs. And they may not even they might have soft close. Mine open completely, automatically, and close automatically. The rear hatch, the rear trunk, I put a roof box on top, haul the stuff up there, cruise down here, 38 miles to the gallon the entire way. One tank of gas made it all the way over here. 590 miles on one tank of gas. Do not play yourself. If you've been looking at a Toyota Sienna with the new hybrid drivetrain, I know you're going to say, CVT, oh man. Listen, you talking to a gentleman that's a car guy. I understand. This CVT pretty much has been mastered as far as how Toyota's done it. It drives perfectly fine. I love it. I will have no other family vehicle. These kids are going to be in this minivan until they're off into college and maybe get married. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows when they're going to leave the house the way this economy's going. Now, it was an enjoyable drive. I'm not going to do my full review here, but we drove down here on a little road trip out into Monterrey, Mexico. It was great. Like I said, if you don't have a minivan or road trip, I don't really know what you're doing. Unless you got like one kid or two kids, who knows? Maybe it can work out for you, but nah. When you're rolling 3 deep, 3 plus, you got to make sure you got plethora of options and moves. We got the TV in there, loaded it up with the USB drive. I got 400 movies on that thing. They had a blast, listen to whatever they want. I had the podcast in my ear because I wasn't about to listen to Super Mario movie 900 times. So I did good. And when I get back home, we got some other steps. Now, the GR Corolla, like I told you, every episode updates. The GR Corolla is doing magnificent. Now, I don't know if I did a podcast episode of what I did recently, but recently I changed out the shifter bushings again. Now, I know I talked about the 2J Racing ones, but I changed them out again to the DC Sports ones that have a more of like a Delrin like bushing, plastic bushing on the outside that has really smoothed the engagement. I even changed out the shift knob to one of their weighted shift knobs, a little bit lighter than the We Are Likewise one I was running. And this car is shifting like butter, okay? Kerrygold butter. If you cook like I do, you know the difference. That Irish butter it's a little different. That's what I'm running with. Kerrygold butter in the transmission. Car's driving fantastic. Intake is fantastic. No check engine lights. That was the issue with all the intakes that everybody had. The check engine light would come on, there'd be a problem. So it has been a glorious time, and I definitely feel the power. Now, I've been driving it enough now that I don't know if the computer had to recalibrate itself. Listen, I can be completely off my rocker, and this can be a placebo effect, and I could just be talking out the side of my face. But the car's power is there, and man, it must have calibrated something, because the other day I was riding on it hard in the back roads, and this thing was alive in a newfound way. So I'm trying to avoid going the downpipe tune route because I just don't want to get that aggressive with it. But I mean, the numbers I'm seeing from people just doing a downpipe and keeping it simple, I don't want to really change. I don't want to change the turbo. I don't want to increase the boost. I want to do a tune where it stays at the same factory PSI level, just cleans up the map so I can gain that little bit of power. They're doing 300 at the wheel, 350 torque, and that's a good number. I'm not looking for a barn burner. I'm not looking for a Texas 2K S58 battler. This is back roads, country driving, canyon carving. One day I'll get to the track, but until then I won't. Distractions in my podcast because my family's walking around. Anyways, I'm going to probably change. We're going to go to suspension next. That's the next big thing, right? Suspension's coming next. I was going to go for springs. I thought about the I-back springs. I thought about the Swift springs. And then I was talking to my good friend, Chris. And we were just having a discussion. I said, yo, you know what? I'm trying to do all this stuff and it's already been figured out. And here's what I'm talking about. When you get springs and lowering springs, the wheel fitment, the car can run very aggressive wheel fitment offsets. But when you start lowering the car, everybody's like, you're going to rub. You're running the plus 22. You want to really lower this car pretty low. You're going to rub somewhere. I don't want to take out the fender linings. I hate that look when they're gone. That's just me. So I realized that if I want to have better adjustment and better ability, I need to just get my coilovers. And I keep having to focus my brain, because when you see people buying springs and lowering the car, everybody's online getting front lifts. Everybody bought the Sabre Designs kit, the carbon fiber lip kit. I almost bought the same thing. People got the springs on cars, are looking sexy, and I'm over here stock ride height, no aesthetics, and I'm like, I'm about to cop the T37 Sabre Design Swift Spring package, which is like the starter package for a GR Corolla right now, and I don't want to do that. So I'm waiting, because patience is what's going to have me build the one I truly want to do. So I'm going to get coilovers. I'm not touching springs. I don't care about it. Not doing it. Don't even want to hear about it. I'm going to a very high-end company for the coilovers. I looked at a company called Annex Suspension, and their stuff is, my goodness, very nice. Olin's is coming out with something. I could wait for them. I mean, by the time I'm ready to do this and pay the money for it, Olin's might be out and release something. So who knows? But I'm waiting for that to come. I'm waiting for a certain front lip design I'm going to do on the car. Flow Designs out of Australia released their lip kit for the GR Corolla. Looks very nice, very clean, simple. So I have options that are coming. But until then, the next time I shoot this episode on my podcast, I'll probably be back in my room. Who knows? I'll be back in my normal backdrop for the podcast. Until then, enjoy the views. If you're watching on video, you know, I got Monterrey behind me, up in the mountains. No other car podcasts are doing it like this. You know that. And if you think it is, help them tap in with me so we can collab too. I love other car podcasts I listen to all the time. So I started mine. But until then, you already know the drill. Do as you wish and do as you may. It's Cameron Biggs from the Chapinque National Park up in Monterrey, Mexico this time. I'll see y'all around. Peace.